Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Jeffrey and my good friend Mark Phillip both sent me this story, and when Mark Phillip sent it to me, he lives in England. He said, "Steve, did this happen near you?" Oh, it happened near me. But the interesting thing is that this is making headlines around the world. Which again, if you find yourself in the headlines around the world, you hope it's for something a little more constructive than this, because the hospital in this story now looks pretty bad. So from the BBC, Ian Youngs wrote this: singer sues hospital claiming fame delusion mix-up. A member of the musical group The Four Tops is suing a hospital, claiming doctors stopped emergency treatment and then shifted gears and ordered a psychological evaluation because he had told them that he was a member of the famous singing group. The man's name is Alexander Morris. Now, he's not one of the original Four Tops, but he joined the group back in 2019, and he went to a hospital near Detroit with difficulty breathing and chest pain in April of 2023. His legal action claims he was racially profiled, and doctors assumed he was mentally ill because he had told them he was in the Four Tops. And instead of treating his clear symptoms of cardiac distress, they instead decided to check him out to see if he was all there. He was eventually diagnosed with a serious heart condition and pneumonia, and he had suffered 3 seizures while in the hospital. Hospital has previously said its top priority is the health and safety of patients, but it is unable, of course, to provide details on cases under investigation. Now, the Four Tops are known for classic hits such as 1966's Reach Out, I'll Be There, and have had a number of lineup changes in recent years. However, the original group was together for quite some time. In his legal papers, the man now claims, and he's 53 years old, he had security concerns due to stalkers and fans, so he informed a nurse and a hospital guard that he was in the pop group. He also told a doctor he had difficulty breathing and chest pains, as well as a history of heart disease, but staff wrongfully assumed he was mentally ill when he revealed his identity as a celebrity figure. They took him off of oxygen, put him in a straitjacket, and a guard subjected him to racial discrimination. And I think that's from the complaint, so I don't know exactly what that entails. However, when you go to the hospital complaining of chest pains and you wind up in a straitjacket, that might be a problem. I don't think that's a recommended treatment. Now, I know there's doctors in the audience, right? Hey, Sam, how you doing? But let me know how many patients you've had straitjacketed because they complained of chest pains. His wife tried to explain to the guard that he was actually telling the truth, but she was ignored. And then staff realized their mistake only when he managed to get them to watch footage of him performing with the group at the Grammys. Turns out, at the Grammys, they have said, "Ladies and gentlemen, the Four Tops." And there he was on stage, living his delusion. And they offered him, and this is pretty funny, it says here they offered him a gift card of $25, which he refused, by the way. And the question is, if a hospital gives you a gift card, what do you do with it? Do you buy a souvenir shirt? I checked into the hospital with a heart condition. All I got was this stupid shirt. I'll take a case of tongue depressors and some of them cotton swabs. $25 gift certificate to a hospital. Of course, they may have offered him a gift card that was usable someplace else, but it's funnier to think what I thought. So, he announced that he was planning to sue, and at the time, the hospital said the health, safety, and well-being of our patients, associates, and community members remains our top priority. We remain committed to honoring human dignity and acting with integrity and compassion for all persons and the community. We do not condone racial discrimination of any kind. We are unable to provide details in cases under investigation. We've talked about other similar kinds of stories. There was a story a couple years ago where somebody came to a hospital complaining of a medical condition, and staff decided that they didn't have one and tried to eject the person, and then called the police and had them arrested for trespassing. And it turned out they actually had a medical condition that needed help. But here, it's a guy who shows up and goes, I got chest pains. And while they're talking to me, he goes, oh, and by the way, I'm in the Four Tops, the group. And they go, okay, this guy's crazy. And, if I checked into a hospital and said, look, I'm Jim Morrison of the Doors. I'm Jimi Hendrix. At that point, you go, okay. But even so, let's suppose I showed up and said, I am Jim Morrison of the Doors, and I've got chest pains. Wouldn't you check the chest pains? Or do you just automatically assume that because the person made a statement that seems odd and untrue, you just assume that they couldn't possibly have a health issue? Because my belief that I'm Jim Morrison of the Doors, which by the way I don't believe, is not something that's going to actually have anything to do with whether or not I have chest pains. What if I actually was mentally ill and had chest pains? For those who don't know, by the way, I worked in radio for quite some time, and I worked at 2 oldies stations in a row. And I played a ton of Motown music, including the entire catalog of all these bands, including the Four Tops. But in case you didn't know, they're from Detroit. They were one of the most commercially successful American pop music groups of the 60s and helped propel the Motown label to international fame. They were founded as the 4 AIMS, A-I-M-S, and the lead singer, Levi Stubbs, along with Abdul Duke Fakir, Ronaldo Benson, and Lawrence Payton, remained together for over 4 decades, and it wasn't until 1997 when they had a personnel change. And so they've had some people come and go now, and I believe there's one guy left in the group who's from the original 4. And that's happened to a lot of groups. I saw the Temptations a while back, and they had some original and some not. That was a while ago. But I remember, of course, the songs. And there's one of their songs called Same Old Song. And it's got the lines, sentimental fool am I, to hear an old love song and want to cry. And, they didn't write the song. Holland, Dozier, Holland, the 3-person writing team that cranked out a lot of the hits at Motown, I believe, wrote that song. But they had a great sound, and they were one of the groups that put Motown on the map. And I've been to Hitsville down there in Detroit, and I've stood in the studio where those songs were recorded for the most part, and it's amazing. And so this guy here, it's true, he's too young to have been in the original group, but he is in the group as it's currently put together, and he was telling the truth. So he checks in the hospital and goes, look, I'm having chest pains, trouble breathing, and I'm a member of the Four Tops. And he says he did that because he's had issues with people stalking him and so on, following him around. And by the way, I believe that. So the crazy part is not what he said to them. The crazy part is they said, hey, this guy, he's crazy. Go get a straitjacket. Now, I never thought about whether or not hospitals have straitjackets on their premises. And I thought to myself, maybe they have to. They deal with actual people who have delusions and so on. And like I said, it's a far cry from me showing up and going, hey, I'm Jim Morrison of the Doors, because they could say, well, it'd be hard to treat you, my friend. I think you're buried in a cemetery in Paris, aren't you? And haven't you been there for a few decades? Or are you the Jim Morrison who was all over the Weekly World News for a couple decades because you didn't really die? But here, this guy actually sang at the Grammys as part of the Four Tops and was telling the truth. So there's a lawsuit now filed. It says this happened in Detroit, but I believe it happened in Macomb County. But either way, Macomb County is just one county up from Wayne County, which is where Detroit is. So we'll see how this goes. But it's not a great look for the hospital. And the $25 gift card, again, like I said, what's that going to fix? So Mark, Philip, and Jeffrey, thanks for sending it. Singer sues hospital, claiming a famed delusion mix-up. Ian Youngs wrote that for the BBC, but widely reported, as I like to say. Questions or comments? Put them below. Those. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. All right, everyone. Line up alphabetically according to your height.